When you don't hear things that people say, you either fake it by smiling and sometimes, most of the time, get it wrong. And you're standing there smiling like everything's just fine. Yes, you need to be part of the conversation. And that's why good hearing is important. I went to a Catholic school, and in those days we had penguins, which we referred to as nuns. They wore the habits, and they would talk where they were writing on the blackboard and stuff, facing the blackboard. And of course, your voice is going toward the blackboard, and all of us are sitting in seats behind her. And a number of us had problems understanding them, and some of them spoke with European accents in those days. They'd come from Europe. Made it more difficult. So they used to sit me in the front row. So then I got the reputation of being teacher's pet. But it was easier for me to understand them up there. But I wasn't the only one that was going through this problem. But at that point, I noticed I had maybe just a little bit more of a problem than some of the others had. But in those days, hearing aids were the size of a little miniature transistor radio with a wire coming out of it and going into an earphone. And they gave me one of those to try, and the first day I had it, it was ripped out of my pocket by another bully and thrown on the ground and destroyed. So I didn't wear it. Just went through sitting in the front rows. Same thing when I was in college. I would always find a seat when I went into the room close to where the teacher was going to be talking. And I did fine. Didn't have any problem. I learned to read lips early on, and I was more proficient than I realized. In fact, the Bloomington police used to use me sometimes to read people from binoculars what they were saying from a distance, and I normally got it right. Well, I was told I had a central neural loss, and it was slight. So I had problems before, but I never wore any hearing aids. After I went in the Army and they didn't give ear protection in those days, they noticed toward the end of my basic training that I wasn't hearing. So they sent me to doctors to evaluate. They found out that when I went in, I was in a normal range. And within 3 months, I had dropped down below the box. And so they then gave me a battery of tests for several days and sent me home. And my father wasn't that lucky. He experienced a hearing loss in the Army the same as I did. His was with an explosion. Mine was with gunfire. Hearing losses vary in frequencies. And the new digital age allows the people with the digital hearing aids to bring those different frequencies up into the normal range and can almost, depending upon the type of hearing loss you have, give you perfect or almost perfect hearing again. You're not going to get that with an amplified device. You're not going to hear music. You're not going to hear people talking like that. So that's important. There's also a difference between manufacturers of hearing aids. When I first went to Deb, the first hearing aids coming out that were digital were Simmons, I believe. And I hated them because music didn't sound like music to me. And I knew this. It was hard getting this across to some people that I'm not hearing this. I know what music would sound like when I had more normal hearing. And then Oticon came onto the scene with theirs. Put a Oticon hearing aid on me. It was like I was in heaven again. Everything was perfect. I think I'm on my third Oticon digital hearing aid. Right now it's the Open One. It's a fantastic little device. It's kept me being able to communicate and do business. I was self-employed, so it was important that I have the aid working, understanding the best I could. As I'm getting older, my comprehension is failing, but the aids have kept up enough to where I'm able to function. My father, hearing was bad, and he came to Deb, and she said there was just nothing she could do much for him. He had to rely pretty much on reading lips and watching TV. And he was like that at 65. I'm now 75. And technology is keeping up. New iPhone, Bluetooth is open a whole wide range that I didn't have before. And they've got an app now. If you've got an iPhone, if you need to turn it up, you don't have to push buttons. You can just dial it up or dial it down. Sometimes you get in when it's a little too loud, so you want to bring it down a little bit. Technology is just fantastic. Especially, I was never able to talk on the phone before. Phones, can't read people's lips through the little holes. But once I got the Bluetooth hearing aid, I'd say 90% of the people that I talk to on the phone, I can understand. That I never had before. So that's a very important feature right there. When I'm driving also, another thing that's really good is the apps that give you the GPS. Remember the days when we were in traffic trying to look at a folding map that's never going to fold again? Now you just punch in your location. It gives you the directions. And if you're listening to music, it muffles the music down and then gives you clear directions in there. You don't even have to look. You can just listen and go that, 2 miles, you're going to turn right. It's going. Didn't have that before. Those are all things that are important in hearing. And that little hearing aid is so tiny. And I was understanding that the technology that's in that age and that microprocessor could have put a man on the moon. And the computer that did that back in the day took 8 floors of a building. That's where we've come with, and it's going to get even better. Well, the biggest thing with a person with a hearing loss is when you don't hear things that people say, you either fake it by smiling, and sometimes, most of the time, get it wrong. Other times, you don't hear everything that's said, so you have to ask people to repeat. Most people become annoyed. They don't want to repeat more than once. Or they use such comments as, turn those things up. They don't realize that if you turn up the volume on an amplifier, you don't necessarily hear the music or the commentating better because it becomes distorted at a certain range. So that's not the answer either. So the thing is having the proper aids to help you with your hearing. Everybody's busy today. They don't have time. So if you want to save time and you want to really save money, then go to what I feel is the right one the first time. Because the first thing you have to do is become evaluated. You have to go through that beep beep hearing test that nobody likes. You start to hear sounds you don't hear because that's the way your brain works. But professional people know how when you're hearing a sound and when you're not hearing a sound. It took me a while to figure that out. And once they've got it all down to where then they can tell you, well, this is what we think you need. And most of the time they have a full set of aids there that they can try on you, and you can try and see how you hear. Usually when I first started out, they gave me a one for demo. But then when I took that aid off and went back to being without it, man, I was lost. I was lost. It's just so many things that good hearing can help you. So many people that I know have some kind of a hearing loss. They don't want to recognize that they can't hear. And I've had this one from most men. I don't want a hearing aid. I'll be able to hear what she's telling me. Yeah, and he doesn't realize she's standing behind him. He's going to be sleeping on the couch that night. Then I tell him when she's not there, you can turn them off, and you can still hear normally. You won't aggravate the people around you that know that you can't hear, and you're standing there smiling like everything's just fine. Yes, you need to be part of the conversation, and that's why good hearing is important. I was suggested to go to Deb Pitcher at Bloomington-Normal Audiology, and that's how I showed up over here, and I've been here ever since. I remember when Natalie, you came on board, and then each one of the persons that she hired after that, and you, and it's been very consistent with the quality of service and knowledge that I've gotten. Well, the first thing in both offices, even Deb had this same concept, and Natalie followed it through. It was an inviting atmosphere. It was a professional atmosphere. You didn't feel like you were going into Target or Walmart to buy a amplifying device. You were going in to get serious consultation about a hearing loss. The providers at Bloomington-Normal Audiology are all doctors of audiology. They have gone that next step. So they're medical professionals. They take the time and have patience to work with, especially older people that are difficult to work with to begin with. I have sent so many people here that have come back and thanked me because they have been to other providers before and did not like the service or the quality of service they were getting. And they didn't like the hearing aids that they had. They weren't hearing with them. And even now that I'm a veteran and I go to the VA and I can get my hearing aids through the VA, I still like to come here rather than driving 45 miles over there. I have to pay a little bit here, don't have to pay anything over there. And I'm willing to pay that little extra to come here for the service that I got. People here are like friends. I know them all by their first names, and I feel comfortable with any one of them, although I'm kind of preferential to Natalie. Her voice is the clearest to me. And she understands my off-the-wall sense of humor a little better than most people do. Natalie's voice is it's more of a high treble voice, and it's very clear. Very important when you're working in this business because, like you say, older people, they get frustrated. They walk out that door, they may not walk back in again. So you have to kind of work with them, make them feel like, you really care and that they're there to help them. Just not for the plastic that they're going to give you for the office call or when you tell them how much it's going to cost. You say, well, God, look at how much. No. Look how much learning to evaluate you. Look how much it costs today to do business, to maintain an office and to have a staff. Those are all factors that go into that price so that you can go out and work in a community, work at your job, and hear people. It's priceless. It's priceless.